Nashville. So happy to be here. First of all, before we start, I got a couple things for you. So thankful that you took the time to come here because I got here last night and I did record a show this morning live, and it turns out it's Central Time, and I'm always 8 a.m. Eastern Time, so it was 7 a.m. And it turns out we left Broadway not too far earlier. I did have, first of all, what's everyone doing out on a Sunday night? It's totally screwed me up. I was excited to get play-by-play about the basketball games tonight, and then I realized it wasn't Tuesday, it's only Monday, which totally sucks when you go out Sunday night. But you're here on a Monday night, which is very, very nice. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a full show. There's gonna be some audience involvement, so feel free, but this is gonna be out in the feed, in the wild, so you can react, you can not react, you can laugh, you can not laugh, you can drink, you can boo, you can scream, you can do nothing. It's all good because Coca can edit it all out. So there is nothing bad that can possibly happen. The only thing is that, this is funny. Thank you, City Winery. It's a funny thing in Nashville, right? I passed like 7 places like this. So the thing is that you're allowed to get a bunch of stuff in a rider when you do live shows. And I don't get anything. I get water, a towel, and Kleenex. I don't get furniture or food or alcohol. I don't know why. I'm gonna start getting more stuff as this tour continues. But there's no garbage can. I don't even know what I do with this. And I forgot my sanitizer backstage. This is only my 4th live show. I have a whole setup, and everything was laid out particularly. I've got friends here at table 4, which is amazing. And I have everything set up before the show so I don't forget anything. So I've got my glasses, which I need desperately because I'm fucking old. Coca, market. Coca's not here. So, oh, that reminds me. I need a Coca. So Matthew Coca is the producer of Nothing Personal, and it really is a 2-person show. We've been doing it every day for 4 years. We are live and we don't miss days. And we are a very lean machine. We added someone named Sarah, which has been great. So now there's 3 of us. But of course, Levitard put her on like 20 different shows. So we have like 1/20th of her. But Coca and I do this, and Coca spends the show in my ear. So I'm used to doing it with earpieces where I can't really hear what I'm saying. And I just hear Coca's voice. And what Coca does for me during shows is he tells me when something's wrong, or he tells me if something really interesting is happening during the course of the show. So, for example, if there's breaking news or anything happens, so I need one of you or many of you just to be Coca tonight. So if something happens or I lose my place, which happens all the time, I'll be talking about something and I will not at all know how to land the plane, and he'll just get in my ear like, move on, or you were talking about this. So I have very few notes for an hour-and-a-half show. It would shock you how few, actually. I have one note here that just says O.J. Simpson. I don't even know what I'm going to talk about with him. I have so much to talk about with him. We're going to get to another thing before. Boeing. I'm going to save that for the show. I'm not a scared flyer at all, but I do find myself checking doors now, which is very weird when you board a plane and you ask people to move, like in seat 4F. Excuse me, can I look at the bolts, please? All right, so we're going to start the show. One of you has to do it. Just don't worry about it. Just yell. And we start with the word of the night. And the way it goes is there's music that plays, but we're just starting, so we have no music. Do you like my little sign back there? It's pretty good. And I could hawk the ring and actually get a bigger sign. I may do that. This is the World Series ring. I used to only wear it to weddings, bar mitzvahs, speeches. I wear it on tour because, for whatever reason, City Winery has been so generous, and we've been doing City Wineries. We started in Philadelphia, then we went to, and then after that it was, I cannot even remember, Atlanta, Boston, and we're going to Pittsburgh this week, and we're going to be in New York, eventually Chicago, St. Louis, etc. City Winery has been terrific. Michael Dorf is the owner. Please make sure you appreciate how cool it is. Backstage, they have all these people who have signed the green room. And Michael, do not take this the wrong way. The green room is not sort of the cleanliness that I would like, but that's okay. I'm weird and different. I'm going to put that in the rider for sure. Like maybe vacuum, work in a vacuum just for fun. Wouldn't kill you. I mean, just once. Okay, I think we're ready to go. There's a clock in the background. I can see it. All right, so there's music that's supposed to play, but we didn't do that. So the music that plays before the podcast will play before this podcast. It'll be released sometime this weekend, and it goes something like this, like dun, 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 dun. And the thing about the music that we use is this podcast started with CBS, and the music is free. So you get a list of music that you can use as part of your show that you don't have to pay for. And I was this former team president, and CBS asked me to start. I'm off the subject already, but the quick side story. CBS asked me to start a show, and I said I would. I just want editorial control. And they said, well, that's fine. You just can't talk negatively about the NFL. You can't talk negatively about the NBA. You can't talk negatively about soccer. Basically, you just have to be a cheerleader for everything that we have rights deals with. And I said, well, that sounds like the worst show ever. Like, why would I do that? And so there was no show for a while. And then finally they said, well, all right, but we're going to listen, and please try to be kind. So it started pre-pandemic, and one of the first shows we did, we talked about Roger Goodell. And in the middle of the show, and I was taping it live in the studio at CBS in Fort Lauderdale, here comes this producer running. I've never told this story before. He was running across the floor right in front of me, and he went to unplug the feed because I was being critical of Roger Goodell. Meanwhile, that guy's been shit-canned, so screw him. As soon as the numbers, in the beginning, the only downloads were my mother. That was it. I had one download. So people always say, how did you grow your podcast? And I always treated the audience with respect as though there were 1 million people watching when there was one. When there's 20 people in the room or 100 or 1,000, it doesn't matter. Everyone gets my best effort always because you're giving me your time. And especially in a city like this, I'm so thankful because you guys could be dancing to honky-tonk music, surrounded by people with boots and cowboy hats, trying to look way younger than they are. But I'm good. I mean, it's fine. Love you, Kara. Sorry. Table 1. There's going to be a few things. This is the first time my girlfriend's here, Kara. She's never seen the show. She's never listened to the show. And that's a true story. Not one time. Who could blame her? She always says, but I get to hear you live every day. And I try to explain to her, it's sort of different. To her, it's sort of not. Exhausting, isn't it? By the way, I'm a little schwitzy. It's okay. Coca told me not to tell you all, but I did get a towel. All right, we're going to start now. I keep my phone around during podcasts, and I try to tell people don't call during the show from 8 to 8:50 Eastern, because if you do, I'm going to think there's an emergency. But I don't know why I have my phone during a nighttime show, because people don't know. So my sister's texting. If she texts again, I may have to pause. Because it's certainly not to say hi. That's for sure. All right, this one's done. That was great. Did that out of order. All right. Here we go. Here we go. Expansion. Nothing personal. Word of the night is expansion. As in Nashville, looking to get an expansion team. Can we talk about expansion? You guys like it in the abstract. I love Nashville. You guys have had huge success with expansion. The Predators, very successful. You have an MLS team, hugely successful. And if you've been to that stadium, an MLS-only stadium, 19,000 people, really showing the Predators. We walked by that, the Bridgestone Arena, is that what it's called? Right downtown. It had really good entry. There were like a lot of people who I don't think had tickets to any event who were standing right in front of it. A lot of people like that, and it's sort of like Times Square a little bit downtown. But people from Nashville, I'd assume it's like Times Square in New York. New Yorkers don't go to Times Square much unless they're going to Broadway to see a musical. I assume if you live in Nashville, like Vegas, you don't really go to the Strip all that much unless you have visitors, and then you're like, oh, fine, we'll go to the Strip. But you really would prefer not to. I would imagine that that may be the case with Broadway for all the people here who are local. And as someone who's been to Nashville many times, I love it. I love the energy. I have noticed that there's a lot more branded bars now So country music stars, it's sort of like in New York when you walk by and Trump is on every building, except he just got paid to put his name on the building. He's never been in the building. He's never built a building. He actually probably siphons money from the building. I'm not going to get into politics. I don't want to get into politics. I was told that early. Don't do that. Uh-oh. All right, I can't do that one then. What were we? Stormy? Stormy? Do I have a Stormy story? Oh, my God. All right, that's page 3. Here's the thing about expansion that you have to realize when you're going for a team. I'm going to get back to this. Thank you for all of you not helping me. Trying to get me totally off track, which is not nice. Because it's going to be 9 o'clock or 9:02, and I promised I'd be done. So I want to talk about it because often people misunderstand what expansion is and how to do it in baseball. So I want to take you back. I started in baseball, as you may have seen in that video, back in 2000. Back when there were VCR tapes and it was not analytic. It was people like me and Mike Hill, who may be in this room, former president of baseball operations for the Marlins, now works in Major League Baseball running on-field operations, someone I worked with and got a ring with. And the thing about running a team is that there's certain things that are required to run a good team. In addition to smart people, but that's almost secondary, you need money, you need revenue. And people get confused about how to get an expansion team. So I don't want to dampen anyone's thoughts that expansion could come to Nashville because this does seem like a four-sport city. It seems like baseball would work. The weather's fantastic. You'll need a roof for sure because it's way too hot. But you need to pay an expansion fee. And we started talking expansion fees 15 years ago on committees in Major League Baseball. And the reason why MLB wanted to expand, and they give you, Commissioner Seelig was really good at this. He's the erstwhile commissioner of baseball. He would talk about bringing baseball to more cities and how great it's doing and that it makes perfect sense, but it was all total horse hockey. The reason for expansion is simply that owners go up to the commissioner and say, we want money, and we want a short-term payment because expansion fees get distributed 30 ways. So if an expansion fee is $1 billion, you can do the math, and you get 1/30 of $1 billion, assuming all of that money gets distributed. And then when you think about where payrolls are and you think about how much players get paid, you realize that that's nice, but it's certainly not going to make the difference between a losing team and a winning team, and then it's just wasted. One of the things about running a baseball team, again, I'm off the subject, but this is true. It's a very weird thing, sports. You pay money to players to play. And I know the Predators are playing, and we're going to talk about the Tennessee Titans tonight for sure. And then the season just ends. And the players go home, and you've paid them their salary. And if you don't win the Super Bowl, you're miserable. If you don't make the playoffs, you're even more miserable. Except the players are always fine. And I don't want to take away your view of players as how cool they are and interesting they are. But just remember, it's their job. So they come to work every day. Some of them like it. Anthony Rendon has gotten very bad press. He plays for the Anaheim Angels of Los Angeles. And he came out and said, I hate baseball, or it's not a priority. And everyone was up in arms about it. I mean, I'd release him because he sucks. But the fact of the matter is that there are many players in our career who just didn't enjoy baseball. Much like there's many people where you work who don't enjoy their work. They do it because they get paid. You work, we get paid. It's okay not to love your job. It'd be better to love it, but you're not going to have a team of 26 men who all love what they do. So that was never a huge thing. So they collect their paycheck, and then the season ends, and we hurt when we lose. When you are a president of a team or you are running baseball operations, losing is the worst. And I knew that my career in baseball was done right after I got a text alert saying I was fired. That's when I really knew it was done. That is a true story. Derek Jeter, I got a text alert from ESPN.com, longtime president of Marlins, fired. And I had not been fired yet. So I called Derek Jeter and I said, hey, am I fired? And he said, oh, I forgot to call you. I said, dude, do I get a gift basket, like something? And then I said, wait a minute, I have something way better than a gift basket. I have 3 years left on my deal. Every 2 weeks, baby. The best thing you could do is get paid not to work. It is amazing. It really is. I strongly suggest it. So, but then you got to do something else. And that's when I decided that I would go into media, because me and microphones have always gotten along, because for some reason I'm able somehow to have my brain ahead of my mouth. And in this day and age, first of all, who would have thought that when I was young? But as I got older, I really was able to perfect that skill. And it really is a good skill to have, because so many people who speak publicly, or even in conversations with your significant other, or when you're at work doing a presentation, your mouth is ahead of your brain. And then bad things happen. And in this day and age, when so many bad things can happen, as a matter of fact, another shout out to Kara, who basically thinks every day is my last day with a microphone, because she is concerned that I'm going to say bad words, which I wouldn't say, they're not in my vocabulary, or I'm going to do something that offends somebody, like offend women or men or them. I have several people in my family who are theys, and I get confused, and I'm fine with it. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm not like the old white guy, contrary to what Le Batard says. He loves, that's a character, folks. Just between us and everyone who's going to watch this podcast, what I do on Le Batard, it's character. There's a bunch of characters I play. I do the sporting class with John Skipper. That's my business character. I do the movie reviews with Adnan Virk. That's the Adnan's an idiot character. I do the weekly with Le Batard on Wednesdays. Is there a cough button? So it's not, let me tell you about that. You're Le Batard fans? All right, let me tell you about the $5. It happens to be a true thing. The funny part is that Stu Gatz doesn't take it. He really doesn't. It's Jessica. I Venmo her my fine money, and she keeps it. I keep texting her after shows, did you mean that? Like, do you really not like me that much? And she always responds like with a dog emoji. I don't even know what that means. That's true, it's on my phone. Everything you hear tonight is totally true. She sends dog emojis. I just learned recently what an eggplant emoji is. I don't send it to anyone. I don't want to get canceled. What if I want, like, eggplant parm? Hey, what do you want for dinner? I have to send, like, code or something. It's so ridiculous to have to type in code. Okay, here we go. Expansion. We've done that. Did we talk about the, so the money for expansion. The $1 billion that you're going to pay to get a team, that's great news. It could even be up to $2 billion. But here's the other thing about an expansion. You then have to form an entire organization. And baseball organizations cost a lot of money. You need minor leagues. You have to get a bunch of players. There's huge infrastructure. Way better to relocate a team than to do an expansion team if you're an owner, because it's so costly. The barrier to entry is so significant. And it's really hard to be good. You get players from an expansion draft, which is generally the dreck of the other teams. And so it's really hard to be good. But what's amazing is some expansion teams have won rings pretty early on, like the Arizona Diamondbacks or the Florida Marlins. So it is possible. I was not with the team in '97. When I do a show in Cleveland, I'm going to have to wear armor and like wear a sign. I was not there in '97. People get confused. I only have one ring. I really wanted a second. I chased the second. It's so bad to chase. And in Nashville, I mean, we all know what chasing is, when you're just chasing with gambling or with anything. Chasing women, chasing relationships, chasing love, chasing victories. Chasing is the worst plan in the world, because you never catch what you're chasing. And you end up always basically following your tail. You sign players you shouldn't sign. You do text messages to people you shouldn't do. You make calls you shouldn't do. You do things at work you shouldn't do. Don't chase. So expansion, you've got a fee. Then you have an infrastructure. Then you have a ballpark that you need. And the thing about a ballpark, any city that's going to do expansion, you have to build a ballpark for baseball. And the reason why baseball does not want a prospective owner to put money into a ballpark in an expansion city is that that's money that they're not giving to the other owners. And so basically what baseball is doing is they're going around and going city to city, and they will leverage each city against each other, trying to get the most public money for a ballpark. And I have some great experience in getting public money for a ballpark. It's totally doable. You just have to have the patience of a saint. You have to subjugate your ego at every possible turn, which is super hard for me, I admit, but I did it for years and years and years. And you have to be willing to wait. And one of the things about deals, whether they're expansion deals or business deals, is what separates successful people from people who are less successful is the patience to understand the timing of a deal. Every deal has its own pace, and you cannot force the pace. When you want to get something done, if you ever done this when you're if you're on a sales call or you're selling or you're trying to do something and you're like, this is the most important thing I have to do today. But the person you're calling, it may not even be on their top 20 of what they're trying to do today, and they may not get to you today. And you have to wait until they call you back, because if you call another time, then you're just a pest, and you're not going to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. You're not going to get the deal done. And very many people don't understand how that works. And the way I learned it is through failure. I have failed, and being the first boot on Survivor is the least of my failures, truly. As a matter of fact, that was a huge success. I got voted out first and got to fly home. I didn't have to sit there for 39 days. I only had to sign like one document saying I would never tell anyone. I guess I just violated that. I don't talk about that too much. I'm not going to sit there for 36 days. I'd been there for 9 days already. They do a lot of pregame. One quick Survivor thing, not even part of the show. I don't know does anyone watch Survivor? Anyone? Do you all find it weird on episode 1 when Jeff Probst looks around at the people and says, "Hi, person in the back row in the green," as though he doesn't know the name of the contestants? He's been in the casting process for a year. You've met with him every day before the show starts taping. He knows exactly who you are, but the audience, I guess, is supposed to believe that he's learning your names too. I always thought that was so stupid. Like, it's okay to know the names. Like, why is that a thing? I don't even know why. But it is. So let me finish with expansion and say this. Be careful what you wish for. One of the things about cities trying to do too much too soon is that if you end up with a team and with an owner who is not fully able to invest in your product or doesn't have the right people working with him, you will end up with a losing team. You'll end up with a ballpark that you won't want to be at, and then it will actually become embarrassing for Nashville. And I don't think that will happen, but that's exactly what happened to me in Florida. Florida was an expansion city. Baseball expanded to Miami, and there was no new ballpark. Wayne Huizenga was the owner, and Bud Selig really wanted expansion, and the owners really wanted it. And their view was it makes perfect sense because Florida's so good for spring training. And it was absolutely reckless because they didn't realize that summer is different than spring, that people don't fly down to Miami during the summer, that all of the wealthy people in Miami leave during the summer so they don't buy season tickets. And so there was a big mistake. And what baseball's done is they've compounded it with my help by getting a new ballpark, which still doesn't have enough people. They still don't win enough games. And it can be a dangerous game. So when MLB expands, just make sure you're paying attention to what it looks like. Pay attention to what the fee is. Pay attention to the public-private partnership for the ballpark. And just know that that will have to be done, and the TV deal will have to be done. And that's another tricky thing because the world of TV has totally changed. The revenue that teams used to be able to expect, and they're doing this with Vegas now. This is funny. Everyone is complaining that the Oakland A's are going to move to Vegas. It's a much smaller demographic. It's a smaller TV area. It doesn't matter anymore because the cable deals as they existed don't exist anymore. So really the focus is how many people will stream your team, how many people are willing to pay $19.99. So just a show of hands, would you pay $20 a month to get Nashville baseball games? Right? So it's a decent percentage of you. Now, what happens in August when the team is 20 games back? Are you going to cancel, or can we count on your laziness that you won't cancel? Baseball thinks about that. But the guaranteed revenue is what leads to payroll. So it used to be that you had a cable deal, and you got checks every month from your broadcast partner, and you used that in your projections, and you used your projections to figure out what your payroll was going to be. You'd back into a payroll. The reason why you've seen free agents not sign for what they thought they would get, other than Boras being horrible. The fact of the matter is he totally overpromises and underdelivers. I could ask Mike to tell you a funny story, but he's not allowed to talk. But Boris, and this is totally true, he would just call us about his players, and we would just put the phone down and like go about our business. We would go to the other room, we would go out, we'd have a drink, we'd come back, and he'd still be talking. And he always prepared these books. This is the last player you need, and you're going to win a championship. But he only likes talking to octogenarian owners. He doesn't like people who actually are young and have a horizon, because his thing is, hey, with this guy, we'll win, you'll get a ring. And all these old owners want rings because it's hard to get. So why was I talking about Boris? Why did that even come up? 48629. It's 4869. People ask me about that. 4869. Can we talk about the Titans for a minute? Wait, I have to pause because this is going to be a show and then there's a commercial. So ready? 4869. Let's talk about the Titans. You guys have quite an owner, Amy Adams. She's good. Are you guys happy that you guys fired Coach Mike Vrabel? That was a funny firing. She was funny when she fired him. I got a statement that I wanted to read. She said, I love when owners do statements. Do they not have PR people? It's unreal. She wants you to believe that they're starting over, that she has a new plan. She had this epiphany of how to manage a team. All of a sudden, oh, I'm going to fire Vrabel. It's so funny. The reason, and we fire managers all the time, the reason why we fire managers is when we've done a bad job of choosing players. That's the general rule. Unless it's Girardi, in which case you fire him because he's just such a bad manager. Or Ozzie Guillen, also a bad manager. Or, no, I can just, I have so many managers. I get reminded all the time. So she fires Mike Vrabel, and she tries to convince you, that's what bothers me, is that she treats the fans, as many owners do, as though you're stupid. And I don't like that. So Nothing Personal tries to inform you of what was really going on. And what was going on was a simple power struggle, the likes of which we saw with the Marlins numerous times, where there's people, there's a hierarchy. There's a chain of command. Baseball is very much like that, as is your business. And when you violate the chain of command, nothing good happens. And the way to violate the chain of command is when you go right to the owner and you ask for something without talking to the GM or without talking to the president. Players would do it. They would go right to the owner. There were executives we had who would do it. The only time I ever threatened to quit during my career, and my career started with nepotism. I was I do, thank you so much. Listen, I have no illusions. I was born on third base, I acknowledge it, but I do spend my life stealing home. I don't just sit there and say, hey, like, look at me, I'm a BSD. No, I work my ass off because I like winning. The reason I work so hard is I'm never satisfied, like in a very Hamilton sort of way. And it's not positive. It requires a lot of therapy because I'm never satisfied with anything. I need something more. I need another adrenaline rush. I need something. And so when I worked at the time, he was my stepfather, and then he divorced my mother, and then he was just my boss. And the only difference after the divorce is we each had separate lawyers when we negotiated contracts. That really was the big difference. I was able to compartmentalize. I had been a student of divorce, as my parents got divorced when I was young. And then I went through another divorce with my mother. And it was all training for my own divorce. So it's so important to train. It's anytime you're doing something, like you have to visualize it, you have to practice it, you have to like look at the mirror and say, I'm leaving you now. It does not work. It's the worst plan ever, truly. So the only time I ever threatened to quit, because if you're going to make a power play, you have to be willing to do it. Like in any negotiation, if you're not willing to walk away, don't threaten you're going to walk away. Because when you say this is my last and final offer, like when you're buying a car or negotiating for a house, you have to be willing to walk away. And there's certain times when you have to say, you know what, I'm not going to walk away. Or there's certain times you say, I guarantee I'm going to walk away. So there was one time that there was a guy who worked for us who was going over my head so many times that that's how I became 5'5". He literally would just keep stepping on my head to get to the owner. The owner would call me up and say, hey, we got to do this, we got to do this. And it came out of the clear blue sky. And then you put the pieces together in like 42 seconds, and you realize it came from a late night phone call with one of the other baseball people. And so I walked into his office and I said, listen, here's the deal. Either you fire him or I quit. And I don't take that out for a walk too often, and I take that very seriously. When you're going to make a power play like that, you have to know you're going to win unless you're willing to leave. And I didn't want to leave the team. I loved running the team. It was fun. It was profitable. I loved winning and losing, and I loved the competition of it. But I knew I was going to win this power play because I knew I had the leverage. And the leverage I had is I was doing a lot more than just the baseball. I was running the business for the owner. And so I knew that if I threatened to walk away, that he didn't have anyone he trusted more than I to run the business. But if you do it too often, then it becomes offensive to your boss or to your owner. So I didn't pull that out very often, but when I did, it worked. So if you're going to make a power play, you have to win. Mike Vrabel made a power play. I landed that plane. Mike Vrabel made a power play, and he lost. That's what happened. There was a GM who was brought in. His name is on my sheet, but my glasses aren't on. Ran Carthen. Thank you. Ran Carthen came in maybe a year and a half ago, and all of a sudden Vrabel wanted to not deal with the GM. There are these coaches who want to run the football side. They basically want to do everything. There's people like Buck Showalter or Joe Girardi is a good example. They want to do way more than manage. They want to pay attention to your in-game entertainment video. They want to pay attention to what you're doing with the minor leaguers. And they do it because they say, oh, we want to make sure they're trained well before they get to the big leagues. It's total poppycock. They just want power. And so what Vrabel did is he wanted to keep the power and then increase the power. And when you do that and you lose, you're gone. And what your owner did is she tried to pretend that's not what happened. Instead, she came up with these quotes about not trading him. She said, I thought of trading him. But listen to this quote. It's so good. We thought about it. We're talking. Hi. Hello. God damn. There's no, it's ridiculous. Dorf, I need a mute button. We thought about it. Well, who am I kidding? Hi, my name's David Samson. I feel like I'm stroking out. I just learned, side note, my entire stroke test has been wrong my whole life. I thought you had to lift one hand, smile, stick your tongue out, and say your name, and that means you're not having a stroke. It turns out you can have a stroke on one side of your brain and not the other. You have to lift both hands. So I've been doing it wrong, which means I may have been stroking out my whole life. Hi, my name is David Samson. All right, we're good. Aren't I fun to live with? Can you imagine? So yes, we thought about it. This is her trading Vrabel. But at the end of the day, with league rules the way they are, it would have maybe put us back 3 weeks. She really said that. 3 whole weeks. And you know, to get the right head coach, I was just not willing to go to the back of the line. So I'm going to hire Brian Callahan. Brian Callahan? You couldn't have waited 3 weeks? I thought she was going to bring in, like, Pete Carroll or bring in Bill Belichick. Belichick. Brian Callahan is, or Bill Belichick? He is very surly. Did you guys watch The Dynasty? It's a dynasty. Dynasties are cool, but he's a surly bastard. There's no doubt about that. Brian Callahan takes over as coach. That's who she waited for. It's so preposterous. He comes in and he had his first team meeting. I want to take you behind the scenes of what a team meeting's like when a new coach comes in and they meet the players. All the coaches say the same thing when they're being interviewed. They say, oh, I'm going to contact the players during the off season. I'm here to really, you know, be, what have I heard the 12 people I've had say? Oh, I'm really going to make sure they respect me and like me. And we're going to talk about ways that we're going to make this organization better. That's the key word. Because, of course, when you come in for someone who's been fired, clearly it's because your team has been losing. Except when you fire the manager of the year, which, yes, I've done that too. That was fun. It's so much fun to fire the manager of the year. It's like trading Cabrera. It just stays with you forever. Literally forever. It was one trade, folks. And it was really good at the time. Do you know I spent so much time in Nashville? We come and do winter meetings here. Do you guys go to Opryland at all? Opryland's amazing. They do winter meetings there. And I went to 3 or 4 winter meetings in Opryland. We never leave the property. We don't go out, we don't dance, we don't drink. We just sit in a room. It is the most preposterous thing. It's full of this hating love, egomaniacism, where you sit in a room and wait to talk to members of the media, to talk about players you're never going to trade for and that you're never going to sign. And you do it just to try to build sales. Like, hey, we're going to get this guy, we're going to get that guy, and you know you're not getting any of them. It's so funny. I'm sorry, but it's true. I think Nashville was the place where I think we traded all of our players in 2011. And no, we signed them in 11 in Dallas. We traded them all in 12. We like being the center of attention at winter meetings. It's really good if your team wins the winter meetings, you win the offseason, they rank that. Now on TV, everyone gets ranked. Everyone does top 5 lists. Le Batard does them all the time. Everyone wants a list. I've got a top 5 list. It's so strange because it's so full of tension when you do lists. People are like nervous. Where am I on the list? I just got sent a video. I was like number 5 on the worst first boot of all time in Survivor. I was number 2 on the all-time worst team presidents, which is weird. I don't know why I'd be that high. I was expecting, normally you want to be high on a list. I'm only high in those lists. That's not true. I was number 1. I don't know why. It's not my job to be popular. Is it your job? I'm not running for office. I'm not looking for your vote. Don't need it. That's the thing. We have to say that we care about the fans. And when you win a World Series, that's what every owner is supposed to say first. You get taught that in ownership school. Like when anything happens, thank your fans. Always thank your fans first when you do anything. And I always thought to myself, I love all of the fans. It's so important. But what did they do? Like, they didn't do anything. I did all the work. It would be like me going to your office and taking credit for you doing your job. Why would I ever do that? And by the way, you can't do my job just like Derek Jeter couldn't. Just like I can't do Derek's job, and I can't do your job. It's the most bizarre thing in sports, that people call into talk radio, and all they do is talk about how they would do it differently, how every move you make is wrong. It's so weird. Imagine being a lawyer, if there's lawyers in here, or if you're in marketing or sales, and someone like sitting outside your office and saying, that's the wrong motion you filed. It's so silly, but they do it. And I don't know why they do it. They shouldn't do it, but they do. So Nashville's a fun place for winter meetings. You don't leave your room. You don't leave your room, and I don't know why that is. And the reason why Nashville became a place is the winter meetings used to be the minor league meetings. That's what they were for. And so it was for all the minor league teams to get together, and then it was for the major league teams to get together before cell phones, because you wouldn't get to see your counterparts ever. You wouldn't get to be in touch with them ever. And so they would put everyone together in a room a few times. I have a friend who's a comedian. That's not a flex. He's a canceled guy, but I love him. And we talked before about sweating on stage. And here's the thing he said. That's a great sign. It means like your adrenaline's pumping, and it means you're giving your all. And it's great, but what he forgot to mention is the discomfort of sitting in a puddle, like 40 minutes into a show. That's true. I shouldn't have worn right pants. I'm very schwitzy. Coca's going to cut this. He hates when I talk about this. No one's noticing. Liar. No. Listen, I'm good with winter meetings. I have stuff I want to get to. Just know that if you're looking for a job in baseball, don't go to the winter meetings. And people say to go to it and to bring your resume, but we're lying to you. We don't hire anyone like that. When you're walking around giving people your resume, it gets thrown away. And I'm sorry, but the only way to get a job is with a connection. And the only way to have a connection is to make a connection, unless you're born with one, but make a connection. And the way to make a connection, 489. And then hands up, baby. Hands up. That would be something. You want a viral podcast? Boom, I drop. That's it. Show over. That's it. In an unfortunate incident in Nashville, only 2 blocks away from where he was dancing, he dropped. I'm dating someone younger. She thinks I'm gonna die every day. I'm sorry to do this to you, but literally, she I'm trying to rest or something, and there's like a mirror put in front of my nose. Like, are you breathing? And she'll look at my face. Is that skin cancer? Like every little thing, scrutinize me. I think it's like maybe there's going to be some action or something. No, it's like, when's your next doctor's appointment? Sweetheart, you're going to be alone for 4 decades, no matter how you slice it. Doesn't matter if I die now or like when I'm 80. 4 decades of loneliness. There's going to be a whole nother chapter for you. What's the difference? By the way, does anyone have an extra room? Before we went on stage, he just said, please just don't tell anyone I'm here. Sorry. It's so bad. Thank God I've got Kleenex. Thank you. Table 1 in the front for the win. Top 5 country movies. I do a review every day. I watch a movie every day. It's true. I don't sleep a lot. It's a bizarre, terrible thing. If I could change one thing about myself, and people always say, what would you change about yourself? The only thing I would change, I love myself. I do, and I'm okay admitting that. Like, I'm very happy. I love my size. I love my age. I love my job. I love my family. I love my life. I really have. I am very, very lucky and fortunate, and I love doing fun things. One of the things I love to do is watch movies. And I do it because movies make me very emotional. And my life doesn't, which is weird because as Lebitard's like a therapist, by the way. And that's not an act. He'll FaceTime me right before a show, which he did. Hey, how many people are there? Like, Dan, you could be here if you wanted, and you could find, well, are you nervous? It must be easy. You've done 3 shows already. You're totally fine. Dan, when are you going to go on the road? We're going to get Dan on the road. He's going to tour. We are going to get him on the road. We're going to conquer that fear. So I watch a movie every day, and I love emotional movies. I love rom-coms. I love feeling stuff. I don't like horror movies because I don't like being scared. There's someone in this room who I have shared a suite with lights on, with the connecting door open. Weird. I grant you. But I was it's weird. A president of a major league team in a connecting room with the door open wearing headsets. It's life on the road. If you know, you know. If you've ever been on the road with the baseball team, like the traveling band, I'm not saying that who I shared rooms with ever did anything like that. I'm just saying, because she didn't, I'm just saying that I didn't like being alone. Top 5, was that Mike saying that? I love that. Top 5 country movies. Number 5, Country Strong. If you've seen Country Strong, right? That's a country movie. I loved it. I love Gwyneth Paltrow, and I'm unabashedly a fan. It doesn't matter to me if she's weird or crazy or she's not nice. I've never met her. Don't care. Love her. You can't love someone if you don't know him. You can't hate him if you don't know him. That is a lesson to be learned. You can't hate someone because of who you think they are. Number 4, Tender Mercies. That's a callback to Robert Duvall, who I think is about 112 years old. Here, if you want to know what I was doing right before we came on, we were Googling to look at pictures of Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman today. So feel free to go ahead and look during the show right now if you want to see Clint Eastwood. He was just in public yesterday. He's 94. Oi. When I'm 94, which I will be, I would like it if you'd help me shave. Occasionally wipe the ass, comb the hair, and don't dress me in a windbreaker. That's all. Old people wear windbreakers. I don't know why. And shoes with, like, heavy rubber heels. Number 3, Team Bidet. You work in a nursing home? Do you? My father, that's what he did. He worked in nursing homes. I grew up going to nursing homes. And I learned as a very young age, I was like 12, I didn't know what an STD was. And I learned what an STD was. I wish I learned by getting one. I learned for sure. You can't get one if you're not getting action. I'm just saying. I have never shied away from an STD. It means you're using more than Kleenex. So, listen, beggars can't be choosers. He'll explain it later. So, I deserve it? It's okay. Oh, so I love nursing homes, but I learned that nursing homes, there's a whole lot of sex going on. And there's a whole lot of STDs in the nursing homes, which is awesome because at that point, they're not gonna die of it, they're not gonna take penicillin, and they don't give a shit. And by the way, there's no foreplay. It's a little like the Serengeti. 402 goes into 400, they bang and they're done. There's no talking, there's no eating. It's like a dream. It's like something if you could bring to the younger age, it would be amazing. And that's what they do in nursing homes. And I saw it, and you may think it's like giraffes doing it, but it's totally beautiful because it makes you realize, like, I've got a shot. And that's really, it's all about me. Sorry, Coca. Coca's in my ear. Number 3, walk the line. I tend to fall in love with leading actresses in certain movies. I was in love with Reese Witherspoon for a while after that. I really thought that she was June Cash. And I thought that there was a chance, and then she was divorced, and she left Ryan Philippe before she married that other guy she's now divorced. And you see these movies, you're like, hey. So I called my agent one time. I have an agent, which is funny, not Scott Boras. And I was like, hey, can you introduce me to Reese Witherspoon? He was like, why? Number 2, I'm totally kidding. I'm totally. Wait a minute. Reese Witherspoon's not even on my list, but I can go for that? Every woman says that. Go for it. Like it's like they're doing you a favor by dating you. Like you couldn't pull that. You'd be shocked what I can't pull. Number 2, Crazy Heart. Crazy Heart has my favorite actor, Jeff Bridges. If you want to do a top 5 Jeff Bridges, my favorite movie, I carry around a top 100 list. It's in my phone. It's on my website, davidsamsonpodcast.com. You can see my top 100 list. I do word of the day. I pick games. I review movies. Everything is on that website. And I do it all because I want accountability. One of the things when I got into this business is that I couldn't stand the gas bags who are on TV, who basically don't care what their takes are. They don't pay attention to them, and they don't revisit them when they're so wrong. No accountability whatsoever. So I like having accountability. I tell people when I'm wrong or when there's corrections, whatever it is, I revisit it. Crazy Heart, Fearless, Jeff Bridges is number 1. Crazy Heart is the number 2. And the number 1 country movie is a movie that I would guess nobody in this room has seen, and there's a good chance no one listening or watching on the Nothing Person with David Samson YouTube channel. 1985, a movie with James Garner called Murphy's Romance. Nobody. Crickets. And I'm totally fine because I generally do the show in front of nobody, so I don't need any sort of reinforcement. Like, it doesn't matter to me. I am totally comfortable in my awkwardness, in my quirkiness. It's totally fine. Murphy's Romance is with Sally Field and James Garner, and it has a very common theme for movies I love. It's about an unlikely romance. And one of the problems I've had in relationships, and this is true, is that I always think it's going to be like the movies. And when it doesn't feel like the movies, I always feel like, well, now it must be bad. So I spend half the time saying, are we good? Is everything fine? Because I don't see fireworks, and I don't, like, is this real? Murphy's Romance is about a romance between an older man and a younger woman. And I saw this in '85. I was 17 years old. Who knew my future? And that's something. That's funny. I am James Garner. Oh, my God. He doesn't have a list. What about celebrities buying teams? Are you into that? Like Wrexham, are you watching the Wrexham situation? Ryan Reynolds, Wrexham, they just got promoted. They're now only 3 levels away from the Premier League. So just to make sure that you're all understanding the equivalent. So what they bought was like a short season A team in baseball or a G League team in basketball, and they've had a great run. And they did this reality show called Welcome to Wrexham, and it's been outstanding. And what they're not telling you too often is how much money they're losing. And the way they present it is in money owed to owners. So when their financials are released, there'll be a quote or something that will say, amount owed to celebrities, it says, which is funny because he's a celebrity, but that's not a real financial statement. When you do your financials, owners of teams lend money. Because when you lose money, it's much like your household. If you're operating at a deficit, the money has to come from somewhere. So many people use their credit card, which is not a great plan because of the interest you're paying. If you have more money, you can waste more money, and you can go to a bank and borrow money at a much lower interest rate. But when you've maxed that out, which is the same as maxing out your credit card, it's what A-Rod did, tried to buy the Minnesota Timberwolves. He maxed out his credit card, then he maxed out the bank, and then he had to find a way to close the deal with the Timberwolves, which still hasn't happened. So what owners do is they go to banks. But when banks turn you down, then you go to yourself. And what you do when you go to yourself is you put money in to your team, to your business, or putting money into your household, whatever it is, and you write yourself this amazing IOU. And it's an IOU that comes with interest, and so the team has to pay you back interest. And you might say, that's just you paying yourself back. Except it's not. Because Ryan Reynolds and his partner don't own 100% of the team. So when they're funding losses, when the team is sold, if it's ever sold, or there's distributions that are ever made, there is debt on the team that has to get paid back. And the owners get their money back of what they put in, and they get an interest rate that's greater than what they would get by putting their money in the bank. And so Ryan Reynolds says to himself, I can always make another Deadpool. I always have a way to make money. So therefore, I'm going to put money into Wrexham, and then when it becomes profitable, if it ever does, I'm going to make back that money, and it's going to be a great investment. And so what Ryan Reynolds has been doing with Wrexham has been self-funding this team. And it's the equivalent of, if I'm trying to think of the best team you may have heard of, but just call it a double-A team, which is full of players who want to make the big leagues, but most of them won't. By the way, if you think your kid's good at baseball, he's not. Just know that, right? Don't come up to me and say, oh, will you look at my kid? He's so good. No, your kid sucks, okay? Let him have fun. It's the weirdest thing. Every parent thinks their kid is so good at sports. It's so, you don't hear them saying that. My kid is so good at debate. Who says that? And that's actually like a skill that could be good. All these kids have these coaches they go to. Yeah, my kid practices 5 days a week. I schlep my kid to hockey practice at 4 a.m., and she swims for 2 hours every morning before school. Why? I'm not saying I was the best father in the world, but I didn't let my kids do sports that would in any way inconvenience me. Like, that was my rule. And criticize me all you want. I'm good with it. And here's the other rule about kids. I'm not listening to their fucking music. I'm listening to mine. And I'm not watching Barney either, right? If they want to be with me, we're watching my shows. We're listening to my music. And I go around and I see these parents, and like, they talk like they're 12 because they're only around kids all the time. And it's so silly. Don't do that. I don't know why you do that. Barney? Who? Bluey? I don't even know what that is. I don't trust you. I don't. Is it a kid's show? Don't. That's it. The only kids shows I know of are the ones that were just in that documentary where everyone got molested. Like, what is that? Did you watch that? I'm not moving on from that. There were a lot of molesting going on at my high school, too. It's true. Look it up. Horace Mann. Horace Mann High School. We all got into good colleges, though. That seems worth it. If I had to do that again, I'd do it just the same way. Hey, teach me history with your hand down my back. Thank you. Didn't even know that was wrong. Hey, that teacher's fucking that girl in 8th grade. Seems normal. Why did she get the A? That is true. That's what we did in high school. We couldn't believe that these kids were getting these good grades, and then we figured it out. Hey, what about me? We got to get into a good college. Can you imagine that pressure? It's so ridiculous. Whew. Didn't have that on the card. That's what happens when you're live. You never know what's going to come out of my mouth or in my brain. 300 an hour, I think, is a little much for therapy, but I'm totally good with it. Tom Brady's having a good life, isn't he? Tom Brady. He just dropped the other day that he may come back. These players do this all the time. It's very hard to deal when you're aging and you're used to being able to do things and then you can't do them. We're all going to go through it, and it may be with sports, it may be with sex, it may be with anything you do that you think you can do something and then all of a sudden you can't. And you feel as though that, oh, I can make that pass, or my body can handle playing football. Tom Brady, when you're so good at what you have been doing for so long, you assume Father Time isn't going to win. But the funny part is Father Time never loses, undefeated. And what players do, and this is very common, when they're out of the game for a while, they start dropping hints about coming back, and that's what Tom Brady just did. And I was thinking, if I were running a football team, what would be the upside of having Tom Brady? And I was thinking about ticket sales, and he's trying to buy a team with the Raiders. But one thing about players, and this happened with Derek Jeter and A-Rod and Tom Brady, who's trying to get a piece of the Raiders, you really don't get rich on salary. You live well, and you really can do a lot, but these people who own teams, they do it by owning things like companies or hedge funds or starting companies. And these players who want to take ownership positions, I'm going to Pittsburgh Thursday, and I'm going to get to talk about that time when the player could not afford to get his salary paid, so he just took a piece of the team, which was a really smart move, what Mario Lemieux did. And very often, these player contracts, they get paid, and often they spend what they make, and then they realize that, oh, I want to go back to making that amount of money again. What do? I want to feel what it feels like to compete. Tom Brady's trying to replace it by joining Fox. All of a sudden, he wants to become a analyst. So you're going to watch him in the NFL. He may do a Titans game. I used to know that AFC was always a certain channel and NFC was a certain channel. Now they've totally screwed it up. I never know what channels anything is on. But Tom Brady is going to do this, and it's a very hard job. And now he's floating that he wants to go back and play. And so I did the math, and here's the math. And this is the math in baseball that I'm going to tell you about that you don't read often about. When people say, oh, if you sign a player, he's going to pay for himself. Players do not pay for themselves, even Shohei Ohtani. And I'm not going to talk about Shohei Ohtani and the gambling scandal. You can listen to previous episodes. Did you want me to? Yes. Okay. So, do you honestly believe he knew? So you want to talk to Samson. That's when I ask the audience questions. Get to me on Twitter at David P. Samson, DavidSamsonPodcast.com, or during a live show, just yell it out. All right, what's the question? I thought you had one. No, I listened to your podcast on it. Do you honestly believe he knew? So the question is about Shohei, and do I believe him that he knew or did not know? Tyler Glasnow, this show is going to be released, I think, this weekend, so this will be old, so I have to do this twice, so just bear with me. Thank you. 5 days ago, Tyler Glasnow did an interview where he said that he knew that Mizuhara was shady. 4869. Just yesterday, Tyler Glasnow did a podcast where he thought that Mizuhara was shady. And my question when I saw that was, well, why didn't you tell Shohei that? If everyone knew that the guy's translator, the guy's interpreter was shady, you would tell your friend and your teammate. That would make sense to me. And the whole thing about Shohei not speaking English and him not learning about it till he was in the hotel room, I don't want to say anything anti-Shohei. He's the face of baseball. But let me just say, if you think that he learned about this in the hotel room the night after the team meeting, I've got a stadium that you should build for me. Do I believe it's possible Shohei did not gamble? Of course. Do I believe that $16 million is missing from a player? Of course. Are there players who don't know how much money they have in their bank account? Of course. It's the most bizarre thing. But you have to do the math. The question is, on a daily basis, if $10 went missing from your account, are you sure you'd notice? Are you sure? So, there's one yes, a fellow tribesman. I would notice, I'll tell you that. How do you not notice when you're checking every 2 frickin' seconds? I'm with you. On the other hand, it is true, I'm Jewish. Tribesman, Jewish. No. I love accountants. It's weird. I deal with accountants all the time. We were audited all the time. The union audits you. MLB, it's normal. MLB audits you. We do an internal audit. And so I dealt with all the big four and then with individual auditors. And just recently, I met an accountant who used to work as an auditor, and she was at a dinner, or he was at a dinner. I'm not saying that. I don't remember, he, she, or they. I literally don't. And the question was, do you remember me? I hate that. Like, don't go to, hey, do you remember me? No. And it's not that I don't want to. I just don't. But I would notice $10. But there are players, that's true. But there are players who wouldn't notice. They're players, his account, the way some players are is they spend their money. And they buy whatever they want whenever they want to. And they don't know the balance because they don't care. And they've got handlers around them. They have accountants. They have financial representatives. They've got agents. And the failure of the agents in the Ohtani situation, and his agent is worse than Boris. His agent is a disgrace to agents. The fact, his name is Nez. And you're not, by the way, have you heard a lot about Nez recently? Disappeared. You heard about him when he signed for 700 over 20 years, not 10 years. Let's make sure when we're talking about the deal, talk about it correctly. It's $700 million over 20 years. You apply a discount rate. You can argue over the discount rate. It's about $460 million. That's the general value of his deal. That's the way the union looks at it. That's the way baseball looks at it. Yes, he'll get $700 million over 20 years. But it's like your mortgage. This is something that always bothered me that people didn't understand in the Marlins Stadium deal, saying that we took $2 billion from the county. I mean, that makes me sound better. I wish I could have gotten $2 billion. But what they're counting is every payment with interest over the term of the 38-year lease. And so for any of you who have mortgages, let's say your house is $300,000. And you borrow, you put 10% down, or in 2008, you put $1 down, and you borrow $300,000. You're paying back way more than $300,000 over the 20 years, over the 30 years. You may not have done the math, you may not have wanted to look at it, but you're paying back way more. That's what borrowing money means. You pay back the principal and more. That was not relevant to anything at all, literally. What was your question? Did Shohei gamble?
Well, not necessarily did he gamble. Did he know?
Did he know about the 16 no? By the way, where's the other 24 mil? He lost 40 million. Do you think there's a bookie who's owed 24 million who's just sitting back saying, I'll write it off? For those of you who gamble illicitly, now you don't have to. I just walked by the BetMGM. I'm a DraftKings guy, but is that a live sports book in Nashville where you can just walk in and bet? It's just signage? So it's not even an open sports book. Is there going to be one? Oh, there is, so you can bet here. All right, I have a suggestion for those of you who gamble. Now, nothing personal, brought to you by DraftKings. The thing with DraftKings is you've got to deposit the money first. Hard to get in trouble. You can't, listen, if you lose all your money, that's your problem. Be smart and gamble responsibly. We do live reads, gamble responsibly, like drink right after the Clydesdale commercial. Drink responsibly, and you're going to get eczema. All the stuff with all these drugs. Ozempic, by the way, you're going to get impotent, but you'll be thin, and then you'll get fat again. And it's this whispering woman voice talking very quickly. I have to record those things for DraftKings, and if you listen to some of the commercials, they have me record a disclaimer, and I have to say certain words over the disclaimer. And I do it really quickly because I'm always trying to imitate the people at the end of the drug commercials. Like, you may lose your hips. You may get cancer in your kidneys, like all these bad stuff. But don't worry, if you want to, help your dry eyes, use this product. It never seems worth it to me. That's why I don't use anything. I don't like any medicine. I mean, I take sleep medicine to not sleep because that's fun. But I don't get all the drug commercials because what if any of that's true? The juice does not seem worth the squeeze. The juice, O.J. Simpson. That's a segue. He did it. Boeing. No, I got something on O.J. Do you know what an executor is? An executor is someone who's in charge after you croak. An executor is the one who takes the money that you have and figures out where it's going to go. Generally, you have a will. If you don't have a will, get one. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It really doesn't. You should have a power of attorney. You should have a health proxy. Don't pick out your plots, or if you're going to get cremated, do all that stuff, because if not, it's just rude. And as rude as I am as a father, there's one thing that I've made very clear, right? I want to be buried, and I just haven't told him where, and I'm going to make him do a bunch of stuff to find it right after I die. It'll be like a scavenger hunt. To get money, find out where I want to be buried. All they do is call me. It's the only reason they call me. Did you pick your plot yet? I'm like, are you in cahoots with Kara? Nope, won't even talk to her. O.J. Simpson. So he has an executor. O.J. Simpson killed 2 people. We know this. He killed 2 people. He killed his wife. You're saying he didn't? No. It's okay. I won't cancel you.
Let's just say there are people I know or related to.
And I'm good. Someone is saying in the crowd that maybe O.J. Simpson is innocent. He actually was not convicted by a jury of his peers. The glove didn't fit. He was totally acquitted. And Game 5 of the NBA Finals got interrupted in 1994, which really bothered me. So I could not be an impartial juror. And here's the thing about O.J. He lost $33 million in a civil suit to the Goldman family. He was found liable. So there's different thresholds for a criminal conviction versus a civil judgment. So we can discuss and bicker whether or not he was guilty of the crime. Fine, not relevant. What we also cannot argue over is that he owes the Goldman family $33 million and the guy never paid. And so, if you're a fan of Fletch, there was an ability to garnish his wages. Except he claims he never had any wages, right? So that's a terrible verbal tick that I haven't done in a long time. 4869. He never had any wages to garnish. Instead, he actually served prison time, ironically, for robbery, when he was, in theory, stealing his own memorabilia back. But it turns out you can't steal your own memorabilia back. Once you sell it, it's actually not your property. But what's happened since he's died is criminal. So this executor, and I'm going to call him out. Malcolm, if you're listening. He may be. I'm always surprised with people who are listening. Malcolm Laverne? Coca, I don't know how to pronounce the last name. Malcolm, you know who you are. You're the executor for O.J. Simpson, and you gave a quote. It's my hope that the Goldmans get 0. Nothing. He said this to the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Them specifically. And I will do everything in my capacity as the executor or personal representative to try and ensure that they get nothing. I want that to marinate just for a second. I want to leave it there. And the reason that he gave, because he continued in the article, the reason that he doesn't want the Goldman family to get everything is there was a disagreement because O.J. Simpson wrote a book, and the book was called If I Did It. And the judge ruled that the Goldman family will get all proceeds from the book. As a matter of fact, they took ownership of the book. And when you own the book, you get to change the title. Much like newspaper editors create headlines, headlines are not written by the people who write the stories. Headlines are written by headline writers. So the Goldman family changed it to If I Did It, Confessions of the Killer. True story. That's the name of the book. I think we know where they stand on that. However, it still is wrong for an executor. What the executor is supposed to do is perform. It is actually a legal function. There's a lawyer there, and it is actually, you have a job, and you can get censured if you don't do your job correctly. You can lose your license. You have to do the job of the executor. And the executor is to, basically, your job is to close out an estate. But part of that is tax payment, estate tax. Part of that is any sort of liabilities that the dead person has, and O.J. has liabilities. And anything that would come of it, if they would sell the rights to his funeral or sell the rights to anything that he does posthumously, it's supposed to go. His debt doesn't get, this type of debt, it doesn't get wiped out. Now, if you die, your credit card debt, your surviving spouse could argue that you can get rid of that. It doesn't totally work, actually. But if you both die at the same time, then it's better. It won't pass to your kids, so that's a positive. So O.J. has this debt. No, it's weird. The state law is very weird, the way they want you to do stuff. It's very bad. Here's what I would do if I were the executor. I would have come out with the following quote. I'm not here to talk about whether O.J. Simpson is guilty of the murder of Nicole Brown Simpson or Ron Goodman. I am here to say that it is my job, that I am going to do everything I can to try to do what's right for everybody who is surviving. That would have been an easy quote. So easy. Not admitting guilt and still doing the right thing. But even in death, O.J. Simpson is creating nightmares for the Goldman family. I said Goodman, I meant Goldman. That'll be edited out. And I find it to be bothersome. You have one chance to get it right. It's not a dress rehearsal. We have one life. We all have a choice. Just on a side note, every time you do the wrong thing, it's your choice. We all have choices. All choices have consequences. No matter what. I got criticized back to being a dad. Have you ever had this told to you? Hey, would you kill? No, I would not kill. What if someone kills your child? Wouldn't you kill the person who killed your child? And my answer is always the same. No. Like, what would that do? I'd lose my freedom and my kid would still not be alive. So I'm not sure what I'd accomplish. And yet I get judged like, oh, you must not be a good dad. Like, a good dad? I don't know what that means. You don't have to eye for an eye. You have to make the right choices. The CEO of Boeing has made very bad choices. Very, very bad. We're going to talk about Boeing for a minute. Do you guys all fly? Yeah, I do too. My aunt and uncle died in a plane crash in 1994. True story. True story. It was very bad. Very, very bad. And I'm not scared of flying. I'm just scared of dying. So I don't mind the turbulence. I don't mind the crashing. If I can survive it, I always visualize like how I'll survive it, like what my exit strategy is. I always think like in an elevator. I grew up in New York City in elevators. I always visualize if the cables snap, I'm just going to jump when it lands and I'll be totally fine. So stupid, right? Plane goes down, I'm going to be fine, right? You see it in the movies. Somehow they jump from one plane to the next, Tom Cruise style. I'm like, I'll wear a parachute. The thing about Boeing, they had this merger. Mergers are good. You have a job when the CEO, this is the weird part about the world we live in, and I love capitalism. I do. But I think that people misunderstand. The goal of the CEO of Boeing was not to make sure the doors don't blow off a flight. Now, we all think it should be. But his job is actually to increase the stock price. His job is to increase profitability. And the problem is, we all want that if we are owners of Boeing stock. And we don't want to believe that we may be in danger if we use a product that we're trying to profit from. So the example is if you own money in food companies, you don't want to believe that you're going to get food poisoning at Chipotle if you're trying to make money. If you own shares of McDonald's, the first share of stock I ever owned was McDonald's. I got it from my grandpa. I got one share of stock at McDonald's. I used to love McDonald's. It's how he taught me about money. And I was very, very young. And it was a terrible lesson because I spent the rest of my life to this day. I walk into every McDonald's and I rip off a corner of one napkin. I'm like, I own that. One napkin and one McDonald's. That's what you own. That's it, one share. I still have it. I still have one share of McDonald's. I don't even eat McDonald's anymore. I used to love McDonald's. It was such a nice gift. But the purpose of owning stocks is you want to make money. Isn't that why you're all in the stock market? You're trying to make money. You invest your pension, your 401, whatever you're investing, you're trying to make money. Do you actually care about the underlying product of the companies you're investing in, or do you care that your stock price goes up? Or let me put it to you a better way. At the end of the year, the market goes up 20%. All these stocks have gone up. All of them. Your stock has gone down. Are you happy? Because you're comfortable in the plane that's not going to crash? How do you go through the math when you're making your investments? How do you decide what companies? Do you do what they call now, they call it value investing. We only invest in companies that are good with the environment and leave no carbon. It's such horse hockey. People invest in companies to make money. That's it. There's one reason. But you can claim that you're doing it because it's the right thing to do, and they're doing all these amazing things, and they're planting trees when they're using paper. I've never understood that math. I've never understood the whole, we're going to plant trees. We learned that as Jewish people. I was going to say Jews. I feel like I can't say that anymore. As Jewish people, we plant trees in Israel. Never seen them. I've been to Israel a lot of times, never seen the trees I've supposedly planted, but the money goes to UJA. Hey, I must have like a forest. Like, where is it? But that's what you do. Someone's here. Are the trees in Israel? Where? Haven't seen them. Have you seen your trees? I would love that. But these companies, they all say we're going to do a totally neutral party, and they all come in like all the Leonardo DiCaprio is one of my favorite. I love him taking the private plane to all the environmental things. And I used to think that was a big thing. Like, what a hypocritical, shithead. It turns out I was totally wrong. The environment is being ruined by all of us who eat meat because of cow farts. And that's true. It has nothing to do with planes. The environment is screwed by all of the meat we eat. Because when cows, and there's tons of cows, when they fart, apparently it's a horrible gas that ruins the environment. And I learned this, and I didn't care. And I admit that to you. I'm okay admitting that. I went vegan for a month. It was great. Did my part. Lost a little weight. I'm like, look, like the environment, the world's going to live an extra minute. That's great. And not even a minute. It'll be like a second. It's the end of the world as we know it. So this guy got kicked out of Boeing. I feel fine. He got kicked out because of all the crashes, the 737 MAXs. And what we learned is that Boeing, after their merger, it turns out their company didn't get better. Their environment changed, and they didn't care as much about safety. They cared more about profit. They cared about their stock price because they had investors. And when you're on an investment call, and I used to work on Wall Street, I must tell you, being a part of a call with a company, it's a fascinating thing. When you're on a call with the CEO, the C-suite people of Boeing, here's what you don't ask in that call. Are the doors fastened? It never comes up. Literally never. Did you train your pilots on the 737 MAX? Nope, never came up. When you're looking at any of the S&P 500, any of those companies, when you're asking questions, when you're on an investor call, when you look at the prospectus, which you're given and you all throw away, every time you get a piece of paper, if it's not your balance in your account or it's not a check, you do it, and I know you do, you throw it away. Well, what's contained in there are all of the risks associated with your investment. But here's what's funny about the risks associated with your investment in Boeing. Nowhere does it say that the doors won't be fastened. It's not a risk that's even contemplated. And you think about it, and what they do is, it's very much like a sports team. What they do is, when the stock doesn't perform and the planes crash, they fire the CEO. So the CEO of Boeing has been kicked out. He's going to leave at the end of 2024. And I want to tell you who is going to be hired instead, and it's really good. It's really, really good. Here, the board has now elected the former chief executive of Qualcomm as the new chairman. That's really good because Qualcomm, as you know, is an amazing company, don't care about profit at all. Ever been on hold at Qualcomm? Now, how about the management overhaul? This is going to be good. Here we go. You guys aren't going to fly again. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. But when the new CEO is announced, I want you to focus on the new CEO. And when the new CEO addresses you, here's how the conversation is going to go. And I can predict it with absolute certainty. He'll take the microphone. It'll be a prepared statement. And he will be addressing the investors. And he will be addressing you, the customers, the public. And he will talk about safety. He'll talk about days gone by, and he'll talk about all of these things when it comes to culture. And he'll talk about the ways that he will make a difference as the new chairman of Boeing, and that he will return Boeing to the first-class company that it was, where we care about the customer and we care about safety. Then he will turn the page, and then he'll do the next call. And the next call will be with the investment banks. It will be the Wall Street call. And it's going to be slightly different. It will be 5% of the first part and 95% of, I am very well aware of the impact on our stock price of the recent issues with Boeing. And it is my promise to you that I will handle every single one of these incidences. That's what they call them. Don't use the word crash. You don't say that. It's an incident. And I will guarantee you that we will have people in place to ensure that that will not happen again. When someone promises you something that you know they can't deliver, think about that in your own lives. People do this all the time. It staggers me. People promise you that they can do something for you because they think it's what you want to hear, and they think it's what's going to make you feel better. And in fact, it always has made me feel worse. Maybe it's why I don't sleep, because I hear people talking to me, and I know they don't have control. Like when you interview a manager and they say, oh, we're going to change the culture. We're going to win more games. With that, I'll play with whatever 25 guys. How many times have we heard that? I don't care who you sign. I'll play with anyone, and we're going to have a winning team. And they're just lying to you. And so when the new Boeing chairman comes out and will say something specific like that, you know that what they're really trying to promise is that they are going to get the stock price up. So as you're going around and you're now watching CNBC and you're watching all these people, Jim Cramer does this. He's a guy who's on TV telling you what to buy. We do this. Anyone who has a microphone, we're asking something from you, the audience, the consumer. Everybody is selling to you because you're the ones in control at the end of the day. And this is not a comment about socialism or communism or capitalism. This is about understanding the role that you play in society, that you all get to actually vote with your action. You can end companies. You can start companies. You can change the value of companies. But what CEOs are counting on is that you're not going to be willing to do what is required to actually make a difference in the amount of money that we make as people in the C-suite. You could stop flying on Boeing planes if you so chose. Are you going to do it? Not when you want to go somewhere. You're going to say, oh, it's not going to happen to me. You could say that this company does bad things in Africa. I am going to boycott. Nestle boycott was a big thing when I was growing up because they told women don't breastfeed. They have to use Nestle's formula. They said breast milk was bad. So in my household, I wasn't allowed to drink Nestle's or eat Nestle's Crunch Bars. And I was always told why. Still happening. So it may make you feel like you can't make a difference. So I have a suggestion. Before I take one more question from the audience before we end. I have a suggestion about activism. And I've been spending a lot of time thinking about this because it can be overwhelming when you think you can't make a difference. You can feel like, all right, why do I even leave the house? What should I do? And then I remembered my water and wine story. And I close today with a very quick story about water and wine. There was this great community, a community much like yours in Nashville. It doesn't matter, any community. And they were having a community party where everybody would go to this party. And there was one rule only. Everyone brings a cup of wine. And we're going to pour that cup of wine in a big vat. Some of you may have heard this, but I'm still going to do it because the majority of people haven't. And we're all going to mix it, and we're going to drink the wine, and that will bring us together as a community. It's going to be amazing. So one guy, said, here's my plan. I've got the best idea. I'm going to bring a cup of water, and I'm going to go water, pour over here, and I'm going to take a cup over here, and I'm going to turn my water into wine. And he said, I'm going to get a free ride. This is amazing. I'm going to go to the party, and I win. Gets to the front of the line, takes his cup of water, pours it in, goes to the back of the line where there's a big vat, takes the cup out, and he looks at it, and it's a cup of water. Because everyone had done the same thing. Because everyone said, I'm the only one. What's the difference when it's just one person? But the point is, we do make the difference. Because one person becomes 2, becomes 4, becomes 10, becomes 1 million, becomes 1 billion. And so every time you think that you're not making a difference because you're fighting an uphill battle, or you feel like you can't do anything about these corporations, or you can't do anything about what ails you, and you are on the pity train, feeling totally sorry for yourself, it's the wrong approach. The right approach is that all you have to do is change yourself. And if you change yourself, it doesn't matter if no one else changes. because either they will or they won't. You can't control it. But you know what you've done, and then the next person will look back and realize that you actually did something. Maybe they will. And it's not just about being a parent and showing for your kids or being a friend. It's when the cameras aren't on. It's when people aren't looking. It's when it doesn't matter what comes to you. Because maybe you're planting seeds for trees whose shade you'll never get. Maybe you're doing something for the future. Maybe none of it will matter at all. But on the other hand, what if it does? And so I think about this, and I think about, for example, what we're doing here tonight, where you took your time to come watch a show, and I'm here incredibly thankful and humbled by that fact. I am incredibly honored that I get to make a living talking. It is the coolest job in the world. And I get to talk every day, all day, and you know, watch the bank account grow by $10 every day. And the reason I love doing it is that when I was young, all I wanted was an opportunity to just make a difference, to be more important than I was, to be someone who would have an opportunity to have a legacy. And I was so busy my whole childhood, and then my whole adulthood, I was so busy trying to have the legacy that I forgot to be the legacy. And so I've had a total change here as I'm 56 years old, and the change that I've had is the honor I feel and the humbleness I feel, the humility, the ability to make a difference, understanding how awesome today is, how lucky we all are to be together. And my wish for you, I end every show the same, but when I'm live, what you see on the air is the same. It's just business. Hold on. It's just business. This is nothing personal. The way I like to do it when we're live is that this is not business at all. And this is the most personal thing you can do, is to give of your time. And I give of my time, you give of your time, and somewhere in there, connections are made. And that's what it's all about. And I appreciate your time. The show is over. We closed it for the audio and video 60 seconds ago. But I just wanted to thank you all for being here. It really does mean a lot to me. I love Nashville, and we'll be back. Thank you all.